Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but we want to give a shout out to our podcast partners, the Florida Coaches Coalition, We Coach, and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. These are three great organizations that you should really check out. So that's the Florida Coaches Coalition, We Coach, and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. And now, don't fast forward, take a quick listen to our sponsors who help support this. They are all great sponsors that I have used personally. So let's hear a quick word from them. We want to thank Sideline Interactive for their support of the podcast. You've heard me say before, we have a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. We not only use it for home games, but we use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and the customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and check out their products, schedule a live web demonstration, and see their tables and boards in action. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. We also want to thank Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you as an athletic director do your job better. Snap Store allows you to order custom spirit gear. Snap Connect is their family engagement platform. Snap Manage will help you create an entire website. And of course, Snap Raise is their fundraising platform. We've used it at our school with great success, and they've helped schools just like yours raise over $700 million. They even have a program where you can get your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. I don't think anybody else does that. Go to snapraise.com and check out their entire suite. That's snapraise.com. We also want to thank Huddle. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just love the smart cameras, the mobile apps. Of course, they love the analytics, but there's so much more. Huddle is going to provide you with the tools to help your teams, your coaches, and your athletes play at the highest level. At Huddle, we believe in sports, and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school at huddle.com. We also want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or to display your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and check out their touchscreen interactive video consoles along with their library of templates. They're going to help you recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. You can also email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com to get started. Bring your school's legacy to life with Vital Signs Wall of Fame. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets, not just for your athletic events, but for things like school dances, school plays and concerts, even graduation. Part of the setup is you're going to have a dedicated client success manager that's providing hands-on support every single step of the way. They'll show you how to set up, scan the attendees, collect your revenue, and keep servicing your stakeholders with great online ticketing. That's hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors are creating world-class marketing content for their school social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast. Use our code ADPOD10 and you'll get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. Create custom content for your school's social media channels. Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in forms and registration, but they are so much more than that. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with reminders about your policies, about physical deadlines, and all the forms that come when you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can help your coaches with things like attendance and communication. And for you as an athletic director, Final Forms can help you with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. It's time that you talk to someone who gets it, who's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Athletic surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Typically, an athletic director is only going to hear from that 2%, that squeaky wheel parent, or maybe the disgruntled athlete. And you need to hear from them, but you also need to hear from the 98% of your families and student athletes that really love your program. It helps you address those small issues and keep them from turning into big issues because you didn't know about it, because you didn't do a survey. That 98% is also a very valuable tool when you're talking with a disgruntled parent or your boss or the school board. To get started, go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes or your parents, you're really missing out. Talk to the pros at Athletic Surveys and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Brian Rosefield. Brian's a certified athletic administrator, and he's the director of athletics at Ridgeview High School, and that's in Columbia, South Carolina. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Jake, I am excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Excited to talk all things athletics with you.
Well, it's always fun to get together with somebody who knows what it's like on the other end of the microphone. So excited to hear about that. As you know, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that quick bio, where you're born, where you grew up, obviously, high school and sports, and maybe take us up through the college years. Then we'll take our first break. And when we come back, we'll hear about some of your early career exploits. But what's the Brian Rosefield story?
Yeah, so I grew up in Sumter, South Carolina. It's a pretty small town here in South Carolina. And just like a lot of your listeners and a lot of your guests, I'm sure, just grew up loving sports, picked up golf at an early age, age 6, basketball probably before then, throwing baseball in the backyard. My dad, wiffle ball with my brother, little mini hoop sessions in the house. My brother was 5 years older. So just grew up around sports, competing all the time, and just really fell in love with it. Playing baseball growing up as well. And then it was really around age 15 for me that I really fell in love with the coaching side of things. I decided I really wanted to teach and coach, but we can go back to that later on, like you mentioned. But grew up playing golf all the way through high school, fairly competitive golfer, played basketball at a lower level of private school basketball here in South Carolina, which was really great for me because I definitely wasn't good enough to be able to play at the public schools in Sumter. So it gave me an opportunity to compete and be around the game all the way through high school. Gave up baseball around age 12 to pursue the golf. And so once I got into college, wasn't good enough, obviously, to play sports in college. So I decided to do the next best thing, was be a student manager for men's basketball at the University of South Carolina. So one of those experiences that I will never forget, never trade for anything out there, filling up water bottles at 5 a.m, wiping up sweat, laying out uniforms and shoes and doing all that thing. Just being around the game and being around coaches at a high level was an experience that has proven to be extremely valuable for me, and was able to do that for 2 years. So studied marketing and management as an undergrad student. I knew I always wanted to teach and coach, like I said, at age 15, but decided to study marketing and management after the encouragement of my dad saying, well, maybe just pick something that's a little bit general. And so we kind of laugh about that now, but those skills that I gained from those two majors has really paid off here, being an AD here. So, but anyway, back to the journey, just being around the game there as an undergraduate student with Eddie Fogler and Coach Odom at that time. And then was able to come back and be a GA for 2 years after working well, excuse me, after being I'm sorry, Jake, I'm certainly stumbling over my words here, but once I finished up my undergrad in '02, went to go teach and coach at a small school down in St. Matthews, Calhoun Academy, and I came back and got my master's of arts in teaching and was able to be a graduate assistant as well. So just that's a brief journey there, growing up in sports there, Jake.
No, I appreciate you sharing. And again, so many of us, myself included, both in high school and as an undergrad, you have those experiences, and there's a lot of different titles to those jobs, whether it was a manager or you were just helping out, GA. Looking back, what's an experience that you had at that time that maybe at the time you're thinking, geez, I just hate this. But as you go in your career and you come back as an AD, you go, hey, you're using principles and practices that you learned, doing that, for lack of a better word, grunt work. Okay. You got any examples that stick out for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think there was anything that I ever really hated, especially as a student manager, as a GA, but there are things that now as an AD that are completely transferable. Really just the art of just showing up. And we always used to joke about it. We had obviously a lot of staff, our strength coaches, our GAs, our managers, depending on the year that we were there and that I was there. And even after late nights of travel, fly to Lexington, Kentucky and play a game, get done at maybe sometimes 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, depending on the hour. And we were back. We had to be up at class, had to be up at workout. So just that mastering the art of answering the bell. We always call it, we don't care what we're doing, we need to answer the bell. And to be able to transfer that now to high school athletics and dealing with a project, an event around here that's it's been pretty challenging to coordinate different people, different equipment that needs to come in here on campus. And at the very end of the day, my point is I've asked people to help me. At the end of the day, it's like, well, if they can't do it, or if that falls through, I need to answer the bell. I need to get in my truck. I need to go load up that equipment. I need to get it here myself. So just being able to, whatever the job that needs to be done, just being able to go and do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's that AD mantra. Is okay, don't complain about it. Don't point fingers, let's get it done. Let's find a solution here. Let's go and jump into, that transitional period from the teaching, coaching to coming to the other side of the desk, if you will, as an AD. Talk about that journey a little bit.
Yeah. So once I finished up my MAT, my Master's of Arts in Teaching, I stayed in touch with John Combs, who was the basketball coach here at Ridgeview High School. And I'd worked with him at USC, and that's where I really started to realize the value of relationships and just knowing people and being kind to people and staying in touch with people. But I needed a job, and he said, hey, I need a JV boys basketball coach. We need somebody to come in here as well to work with some of our job placement services here at the school. And so I was like, well, that sounds really great. I can stay in Columbia. I know you, love you, love being around you. You're doing great things. So I came here to coach JV boys basketball and help with his varsity team as well. And I remember sitting in, talking about that AD mantra, sitting in the interview with David Gordon, who was the AD at the time. He said, Brian, how do you feel about coaching a sport that you don't know much about? And I said, actually, I've done it before. I've coached volleyball at Calhoun Academy. He said, well, we need a cross country coach. What do you think? I said, okay, let's do it. And so fell into coaching cross country. I did that for 9 years, JV boys basketball, cross country. Also fell into coaching boys track, did boys golf as well. So just really kind of a utility player around here, really filling in wherever I was needed. And I loved all of it. I really got to where just loved coaching, loved showing up every day, whatever season it was, with the same group of kids and just learning, growing with them, from them, trying to teach them what I felt like they needed to know. And all along, I was helping out Coach Gordon with some projects here and there, helping him with some filing, with some physicals, really taking initiative to say, like, hey, I've got some extra time. What do you need? I've got 30 minutes. I've got an hour. Can I come help you? And then eventually it was saying, hey, can I sit in on interviews? Do you mind if I do that to see how you do that? And started the conversation of like, hey, he would ask me, he's like, have you ever thought about being an athletic director? I said, no, I've not thought about it, but I'm loving coaching. Every year that I was going through coaching, I felt like I was getting healthier as a person. I'd kind of shaken off those old, for me, it was Norman Dale from Hoosiers. Like, oh, that's how I'm supposed to coach. I need to yell and scream and throw and all this kind of stuff. And I've finally gotten to where it was, I was still stern and firm and holding my kids accountable, but it was done in a different way. I was doing it more in a kind and loving relational way. So anyway, he started asking me those questions. And then one day he said, hey, I'm going to take the assistant principal job here. So they're going to be looking for an athletic director. You need to apply. And I'm like, oh man, I'm loving coaching. I don't know yet. And so anyway, I did apply. I obviously got the job, got the call that I got the job. And I'm excited beyond belief that I've been the athletic director here for 8 years. So I don't want to say anything to the contrary. And I still miss the coaching every day. But so it was one of those things that I tell people, hey, I never set out to be an athletic director. And I'm extremely glad and thankful that I've had that opportunity for 8 years. Dr. Brenda Mack gave me that opportunity as the principal here at Ridgeview High School. And it's been quite the journey. Every day is a day for learning and growing. And I mean, that is the absolute truth. I've had meetings with some of my interns today, some social media folks today, and I'm thinking, what are y'all talking about with these Instagram this and that? I'm like this, but every day is a learning experience, and we just have first class people here at Ridgeview, first class kids, families, our community. I love it here. I'm so thankful to be the AD. But that's a little bit of a backstory of how I kind of fell into being an athletic director.
No, it's great. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear those stories. For our listeners, our guest today is Brian Rosefield. He's a certified athletic administrator, and he's the AD at Ridgeview High School, and that's in Columbia, South Carolina. We're going to take our first break, but please stay with us. We'll be back with some more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor scoring tables and video boards. Their products not only generate income for your department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. You've heard me say before that we've got a Sideline indoor scoring table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also use it for pep rallies. We use it for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile, and the customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Snap Raise is the landing site for the Snap mobile network, and you need to check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help an athletic director do their job better. Snap Store allows you to order custom gear for everybody in your program. Snap Connect is their family engagement platform. And of course, Snap Raise is the fundraising arm. We've used it with great success, and they've helped schools just like yours raise over $700 million. They even have a program where you can get your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. Does anybody else offer that? Go to snapraise.com and check out their entire suite of platforms. That's snapraise.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Brian Rosefield, and he's the athletic director at Ridgeview High School in Columbia, South Carolina. Brian, we also like to have our guests share a little bit about the mentors that they've had in their life. None of us get to where we're at on our own, and the expression I always use is, I still hear those voices in my head. Do you have any voices that you still hear?
I have tons of voices, but we'll talk about our mentors. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So the mentors, I mentioned one already, David Gordon. I was super fortunate just specifically to have him. That assistant principal job that he took was here at Ridgeview High School. So whenever I got into this chair and didn't know what was going on, which was every day, every moment of every day for those first few months, few years, potentially, if you ask some people, I was able to call him and say, hey, how do you handle this? What do you do with this? And so to have that on the job training with Coach Gordon was huge. And he's still somebody that I call as a sounding board and ask for his help. Coaching wise, mentors in my life. I mean, you don't have enough time on this podcast for me to go through it. I'm sure that's the same with a lot of your guests, but Coach George Glimpf was one of those guys that I idolized growing up. I idolized when I was a college student. He was the head coach here at Eau Claire High School in town. He was the very first NBA player development coach that left when Jermaine O'Neal was here and got drafted. So he was hugely impactful for me, and I got the opportunity to work with him here. His grandson ended up coming here and playing basketball, and I remember the day he walked into the gym, I was falling all over myself. First of all, I'm like, oh my gosh, George Glimph is in the gym. And second of all, he's like, hey, Brian, I've gotten to know him over the years. He said, hey, do you mind if I come to practice? And I just pop in and help every time, from time to time. I said, Coach, absolutely. And to watch him work, a guy that had won multiple state championships, worked in the NBA, first name basis with Isaiah Thomas, all of these guys, to watch him, first of all, never use a whistle. Tell kids when he wanted a drill to stop, he would just say stop. And if a kid would take an extra step or two, he'd say, it's no problem. Just give me 5 fingertip push-ups. It's no problem. Never yelled, never shamed a kid. That's when my what I would consider my master's, my PhD in coaching was really earned. Watching him work and how he treated people was just incredible. So God rest his soul. We lost him within the last couple of years, but miss him greatly. Neil Ring is the AD up at Bob Jones University. I've gotten to know him through the podcast world. He heard me on a podcast years ago, reached out, said, hey, I want to talk leadership. And so we've been able to do that for the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So extremely thankful to him. I mentioned Eddie Fogler, Dave Odom, Carolyn Sadeko, one of your former guests on this show. It's just, and honestly, Jake, anybody that I've ever worked with. I mean, I mentioned our strength coach back at USC, or my former GAs that I worked with, guys that are still around the game that we're just all interested in personal development and trying to grow and be the best person that we can be, and be the best coaches, be the best administrators that we can be. There's just tons and tons and tons.
Wow. Again, it just fascinates me to hear all the different stories and connections that we have, and some of the common ground, some of those common connections as far as mentoring. Very cool stuff. Brian, we mentioned that you're a certified athletic administrator, and we do get a lot of, younger and new ADs that listen. I think it's important for them to hear the journey that, let's say, veteran ADs like ourselves, have taken. So talk a little bit about how you first got involved with your state association and along with the NIAAA, and your journey to earn your CAA. Those CAAs just don't happen by accident. So, what's your association story?
So I'm fascinated by this journey too. I know I heard about the NIAAA and the SCAA my first couple of years as an AD, but I'll be honest with you, Jake, it was one of those things that as information was just flying by my head, I said, okay, I don't have the capacity to really to latch on to what I'm hearing here. I'm just trying to figure out eligibility, and I'm just trying to figure out how to deal with folks around here and around our district. But it took me probably 3 or 4 years to really figure out, like, oh, they're doing really, really cool stuff. And so rewind back to last year, I finally went to my first NIAAA conference out in Denver. I'd finally heard about it for years, and it's around the same weekend that we do a big event here with the Bash, a big national basketball event that we do here. And finally I said, you know what, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go. I finished up the Bash on a Saturday night. I was on a plane on Sunday morning to catch the tail end of that conference, and so was blown away. Again, back to your mentoring conversation, but the sit-in sessions, that's where I met Carolyn. It's where I met so many other folks that I've stayed in touch with over the last year and a half, and just realized, like, goodness gracious, NIAAA is really out there, really caring for ADs, and has content available to help me grow as an AD and to help all of us grow as an AD. And so I've gotten a little bit more involved in our state association at our conference every spring down in Charleston. And then through that NIAAA and state association, pursued my CAA. I believe I earned that last summer. And that was great to be able to sit on these classes with folks that I know, folks that are at other schools here in South Carolina, and listen to them, listen to their experience, glean what I can glean from them, and then study for a test, which it's not very often that as an adult I get to take many tests anymore. So to really put that pressure on myself, like, goodness gracious, I don't want to go in here and fail this thing. And so to really prepare and learn the content needed to get that CAA. And so for me now, I'm working on my CMAA. I'll be taking some classes here and coming up here in a couple of months, and hopefully can wrap that up here at the end of the summer. And for me, I think it's great to, okay, having letters behind my name. Okay, that's all well and good, but it's the content, the things that I'm able to learn through these courses, through the interactions with great ADs from around the country, to be able to raise my game and become better, to be able to better serve my coaches, better serve my kids and our community here at Ridgeview. So I think it's great. The structure is there. And yeah, don't be like me the first 3 or 4 years and just let it pass you by. Go ahead and get involved now, because there's a lot of great content, a lot of great people to get involved with.
Go and share, if you can, that your CAA project, what your topic was, how you kind of settled on it, and maybe a little bit of the process. I know sometimes just starting out, it can be intimidating, but excuse me, your CMA project, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so my CMAA project is going to be around, well, likely is going to be around the Bash again, that national event that I talked about earlier. We do that every December. It's 3 days. We bring in teams from all over the country, and it's one of those things that our community loves it. It's one of those things that I love it. There's so many things involved with logistics to bring in teams in, just to the experience that we're creating. So I will likely be able to do that as my project. There are other things that I'm sure we'll talk about later on as well in this interview, but there are other things that I may choose as a project to work on for that CMAA.
Well, again, congratulations. As a longtime member of the National Certification Committee, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't nudge you to share that, to help everybody else, see that, hey, you're doing something right now as an athletic director at your school that would make a great CMA project. You don't have to go out and invent something, whether it's kids or coaches or your community. You're already doing something. So thanks for sharing that. Once again, for our listeners, our guest today is Brian Rosefield. He's a certified athletic administrator, soon to be a CMAA, and he's the athletic director at Ridgeview High School, and that's in Columbia, South Carolina. Let's go and take our second break, but again, we'll be back with some more, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Huddle for their support of the podcast. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure our school is a Huddle school, and our coaches just love the smart cameras, the mobile apps. Of course, they love the analytics, but there's so much more that Huddle has to offer. Huddle is going to provide your teams, your coaches, with the tools to help everyone in their program improve, and it's going to be a professional grade solution. Go to huddle.com. We believe in sports, and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. They're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or to recognize your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and talk to John and Gretchen and their team, and check out their interactive touchscreen video consoles and their templates, which are going to help you recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com or shoot them an email at sales@vitalsignswalloffame to get started. Let them help you bring your school's legacy to life. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Brian, one of the things that we try to do is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you do at Ridgeview? Maybe they're initiatives that you've created or something that's been in place for 50 years, or maybe things you've seen at other schools that you would consider best practices that you can share with our listeners.
Yeah, Jake, I try real hard to streamline as much as I can. when I hire a coach, especially a first year coach, it is like drinking from a fire hose. It's, hey, where do I get the logo for the sweatshirt that I want to get put, or for my handbook or whatever? There's so much to know. And so what I've done is, I think I started it this past summer, maybe last spring is when I started it. I just created a website. Jake, I'm a little bit of a nerd, so I apologize for that ahead of time. But I created a website just for my coaches, and it's called ridgeviewcoaches.com. Now, your listeners can go and check it out, but they'll have access to some of the things and some of the things they want, and some of those things that are just specific to Ridgeview that I need to keep just for our coaches. But ridgeviewcoaches.com. So for that coach that says, hey, Coach Rosefield, what time's the bus leaving? Hey, go to ridgeviewcoach.com. It's posted there for you. Hey, again, do you have the logo? You can send me. I'm at the printer right now. ridgeviewcoaches.com. You can send the printer right there. How do I do a purchase order? What do I do for the credit card procedures? ridgeviewcoaches.com. So it's given us that place that I can put it, for me, I can put it on repeat. And I want my coaches to know that they can come to me, they can come barge in my office and talk, and I want to be a resource. But also, if I can help save my time, if I can help save their time and put things all in one place, then that website has been really, really huge. It's built on a Google site. We're a Google school here. I use Google Sheets in it. I use Google Docs in it. I'm hyperlinking to other things. It's really not that hard to create. So that is, for me and our coaching staff, I feel like that's one of the best practices that we've been able to institute here within our school. We have tons of things that we do really well, but that's one of those things that I really do believe in it. And like I said, I turn it on repeat when my coaches keep asking me the same question over and over again.
Wow. If one of our listeners wanted to, reach out and pick your brain a little bit about how you do things there at Ridgeview, or just add you to their network, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, so good question, Jake. As much as we do around here with social media, I myself don't have a specific presence, Brian Rosefield presence on social media. I am on LinkedIn. If folks want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, that is totally fine. And one of the things that I'm very clear about in my life is I want to be helpful, as helpful as I can to people around me. And so in this case, to your listeners, I have no problem giving out my email address. If people want to email me, brosefield@richland2.org. I will get back to people. I'm looking at an inbox right now, and I'm embarrassed at how many emails I have in there right now. But if people want to reach out to me, LinkedIn or via that way, email, that's fine. Just be real specific in what they're asking, and I'll get back to them. And I have no problem helping the next generation of leaders grow. But I'm happy to talk about that, ridgeviewcoaches.com, and anything else that we've talked about here in this interview as well.
Oh, no, absolutely. And for our NIAAA members, Brian's information is also in the NIAAA portal, so you can access it there. Very cool stuff. Once again, if you just tuned in, our guest is Brian Rosefield. He's a certified athletic administrator, and he's the director of athletics at Ridgeview High School, and that's in Columbia, South Carolina. Let's go and take another quick break, but please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And if you go to hometownticketing.com, they're going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets, not just for your athletic events, but also for things like school plays, your concerts, dances, even graduation. Part of that is showing you how to scan the attendees that come to your games and collect your revenue. And the cool thing is, every step of the way, Hometown will supply you with a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. Start selling your tickets to all your events digitally. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors are creating custom content for their school's social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. It's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com, tell them you heard about it on the podcast, and use the podcast code ADPOD10, and you'll get 10% off. Start creating world-class marketing content for your school's social media channels. That's Gipper.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest is Brian Rosefield from Ridgeview High School in Columbia, South Carolina. Brian, one of our new talking points we actually stole from Jen Brooks, but we're going to use it because it's a great question. In your years as a coach, as an athletic director, what are some things that you have learned from your coaches or even maybe even from your student athletes? Do you have anything that you can share?
Yeah, I love this question so much, Jake, and thanks to Jim for the question too. I think that one of the main things I've learned from my coaches is something that I learned about myself as a coach, and it's something that I'm fascinated now with what I'm able to do in my job, and to be able to be on this podcast and maybe to be able to potentially help other people with this, is that every coach seems to go through this, I don't even know how to say this figuring it out journey. That, like, for me, it was, I'm going to be a basketball coach. I'm going to be just like Norman Dale. I'm going to be just like Eddie Talley when I play for him, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to be hard. And it's like every coach, no matter what level, has to go through that journey to figure out who they are, who they want to be, what kind of coach they want to be, how they want to coach, and how they want to treat kids, how they want to treat parents and staff members or anything like that. But everybody has to figure it out. And I'm super fascinated by this. And to be able to be on this side of it now, we have 14 sports here, up to 35 teams with sub-varsity teams. So I have 30 to 35 head coaches and a staff of about 80 coaches, with including volunteers, that I'm on the front row to watch coaches just figure out who they want to be as coaches. And so what I just, it fascinates me to no end. And so now when I hire a coach, I have this, something else I can talk to folks about too, a very highly structured onboarding process that I meet with coaches. I give them a long list of things that they're going to be responsible for, and we sit and we talk about it. And I'm here to support you. But one of the things that I always tell coaches in that first meeting is, hey, coach, I'm going to let you fail. And I'll never forget, I won't call him out who it was, but several years ago I hired a coach, and I said that to him in our initial meeting, in our onboarding meeting, and he looked at me, he flinched. He said, what? I said, I'm not going to let you fail catastrophically. I'm not going to let you do anything unsafe. But if you have an idea and you want to do this big tournament, you want to bring in teams from all over, or whatever idea you have. I had one coach that wanted to sell popcorn at games. He said, oh, I'm going to have parents do that. And I'm like, okay, it sounds like a lot to do this and do that and coordinate trying to coach and sell popcorn at the same time. But my point is, Jake, letting them fail, letting them figure it out on their own. Like, oh, like, I have these ideas, and ideas are great, but I need you to figure out how to make it happen. And so coaching them through that, letting them fail, and then trying to, now, as I've done this for 8 years, trying to speed up that figuring it out process. And whatever I can do to ask the right question or make the right reflection to them, to get them to think and say, okay, maybe that's not a great idea, or maybe that's not who I want to be as a coach or who I want to be as a person, but this is how I want to do it. This is how I want to treat coaches and treat kids and treat our community. That whole journey, I hope I'm making sense. It makes sense in my head, Jake. That whole journey of watching coaches just learn who they want to be is super fascinating to me. I think there's so much opportunity that I have to develop our coaches, that all of us as AD, all of us as administrators, and anybody, that we have an opportunity to help develop our coaches a little bit quicker, to get them through that process a little bit quicker, to where, like, for me, I'll be honest with you, I was here for 9 years as a JV basketball coach, and I love what I did. I love my coaches. I love my kids and my programs and my teams. But it was really about year 8 or 9 that I finally kind of fell into feeling like I know who I want to be as a coach. I know how I want to run a program now. I've made 9 to 11 years worth of mistakes here. And now, not that I had it figured out, not that I was the greatest coach in the world, but I just kind of had my feet under me. And so anyway, that whole process it was fascinating. And so specifically what I've learned from coaches is just watching them just kind of come in with their ideas and fail a little bit here and say, and I tell them this all the time. So you're going to go through your first year of coaching and you're going to look back and say, why in the world did I try to sell popcorn at games while I was coaching or whatever? You're going to have those things that you're just going to look back and laugh and say, and it's okay. It's all okay. And again, I feel like my job is not to let them fail catastrophically, but to give them that freedom to be creative, innovative, and take some initiative and say, all right, let's go do what you say, and I'll be here to self support you. Let's go make it happen. So anyway, Jake, does that make any sense what I'm saying?
No, it makes tremendous sense. And again, it's just, I just love hearing the stories and the process that each of our guests, has to share. And you're absolutely right. Those experiences, whether it's a kid or a coach or a parent or whatever, you just never know when that learning moment, that, I don't want to say teaching moment, but that learning moment for us is going to take place. I want to ask a follow-up question, but we do need to move on. Let's go and give out that contact information again one more time, because listeners, I think you got a tremendous resource here. If one of our listeners wants to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more, what are the best ways they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, just find me on LinkedIn, Brian Rosefield on LinkedIn. You can email me, brosefield@richland2.org. And I'm glad, Jake, you mentioned the NIAAA directory there, that I'm listed there. So that's a resource that I had forgotten about. So again, I'm happy to help develop. That's been a word that's come up these last few weeks for me. What can I do to help develop the next generation of leaders? Not that I have it figured out. Not that I know exactly everything, that I know the exact right way to do things, but I certainly have thoughts out there. Certainly have feelings and some beliefs that I can share for sure.
No, absolutely. It's just, adding, it's backing up that dump truck and finding the right tools to choose to go into your toolbox. Very cool. Again, our guest today is Brian Rosefield. He's a certified athletic administrator, the athletic director at Ridgeview High School. That's in Columbia, South Carolina. We're going to take another break. We're almost done with the breaks, but please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to Final Forms for their support of the podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in forms and registration, but they are so much more than that. Final Forms can help your parents, your stakeholders, with things like reminders for policies, for physical deadlines, all the forms that come when you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can also help your coaches with attendance and communication. And for you as an athletic director, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. It's time that you talk to a team that's walked in your shoes, with somebody who gets it. To take the next steps, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Brian, you and I were talking during the break, and you made a presentation you mentioned at your school, which I think is really a cool idea. Go ahead and share that with our listeners.
Yeah, so Jake, this is something that it's very it's been transformational for me, and I'm not saying that I've got this figured out, but it's a discussion around, especially in this case with coaches, but I did present to our district, all of our district staff that wanted to come, teachers and coaches alike, but this idea around what are you defending when a kid comes to you, specifically for me, just relate to it directly with basketball. Why are we setting the screen on the elbow? We need to set it on the block. And instead of the old, first year head coach Brian, like, I'm the head coach, you don't question me, I'm in charge. Instead of looking at it that way, trying to drop that defense, depending on the situation. Now, if it's late game and we're down 2 and we're trying to run a play, like, hey, set the screen on the elbow, we'll talk about it at practice tomorrow. But if it's at practice, depending on the context of the question, can I drop my defenses and be able to better relate to our kids in this case? And so being able to focus on my feelings, focus on the belief that I have about myself. And that's usually the case. That's my downfall, Jake. Whenever somebody questions me, which happens every day, I'm questioned every day by administrators, by parents, by kids. Why are we doing it this way? That team's doing that. We need to be doing it this way. And so, trying to create some distance between that question and my reaction has been a real key for me. And that's one of the things that I try to teach my coaches and coach my coaches on. So just being able to focus on, okay, so first of all, what's the feeling that came up? Like, did I get angry? Was I sad? Was I embarrassed? Was there some shame in place? Like, that's one of my big messages is shame. Like, if, oh gosh, I should have been we should have been tweeting more. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm not worthy of whatever, that type of feeling. And then the second thing, to be able to focus on the belief that is now created out of that feeling that I just felt, and then, for example, back to that, it's setting a screen on the elbow versus the block thing. Like, oh gosh, I bet I am an idiot. I'm not a very good coach. This kid thinks I'm not a very good coach. And so that is the thought that I'm usually that's what I'm trying to defend. Well, I'm going to show you that I'm in charge and trying to prove to this kid that I know exactly what I'm talking about. And then really realizing that sometimes, shocker, Jake, sometimes I get it wrong. Sometimes I'm not right. Sometimes, you know what, maybe we should set the screen on the elbow or on the block in this case, right? And so what people, I do ask this question during the presentation, like, what are the three most powerful words that a human can say to another human? And most people think like, oh, it's I love you. And those are very powerful words. I'm not to disagree with that. But for me, the three most powerful words I can say are, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I screwed that up. I messed that up. I was wrong. Let's try it your way. Let's try to set that screen on the block and see what happens. But I think what ends up happening to us as coaches and administrators and shocker as humans is that we aren't aware of the feelings. We aren't aware of the beliefs that we are creating or we're carrying around. And now resentment starts to come into place. And that's one of those things that forces teachers out. It forces coaches out of the business. They get burned out. And I'm not saying that this is an extremely busy job. There's a lot of demands placed on us as administrators and as coaches. But if I can tend to, obviously one of the big buzz phrases lately has been self-care. And listen, Jake, I'm going to get a massage. I'm going to go to a saltwater float. I'm going to do all those things. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to write. I'm going to journal. I'm going to do all those things. That's involved in self-care. But can I be aware of the resentment that I'm generating? I'm the one generating it, and the blame that I'm generating, and realize that those are the things that push me further out the door. And so again, I'm trying to bring this full circle, to be able to coach my coaches on some of these ideas and realize, like, yeah, it's a busy job. Parents and kids are demanding, but focus on what you're doing and what you're trying to defend. Try to drop those defenses and to say, you know what, sometimes I just have to say, hey, thanks for your feedback. I appreciate that. And just keep it moving. Just keep it. And I don't even have to get into all these feelings and beliefs, that type of things, and I think the biggest thing, just to kind of wrap up this whole thing, I could talk about this for hours, is just focus on what's inside of my hula hoop. What can I control? I can't control, Jake, what you're thinking, what you're saying. I can focus on what I'm doing, how I'm reacting, what I'm doing, what I'm saying, and just really focus on that, I think, is the real key. So again, I could talk for hours. I probably is a longer answer than you were wanting, Jake. But yeah, what are you defending as a coach and as an administrator?
No, such a great point, and you're absolutely right. And again, as you're talking to our listeners, I heard you talking to, let's say, the younger Jake Von Sheer. That was so me. Don't challenge me. I know what I'm doing. And many times I didn't know. And when I finally learned how to say, well, hey, that's a great idea. Let's take a look at that. Or, let's talk about that after practice, or thanks for sharing. Or in those many cases, hey, I screwed up. I was wrong. It's such a powerful tool that allows you to, continue and even make that relationship that you're at, whether it's a student athlete or a coach or a parent or whoever it is. It just makes that relationship that much stronger. So great stuff. You're right on point. Thanks so much for sharing. Um, this has been really cool spending some time with you. I wish we had some more time, but we don't. And we always like to wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics. So, we're going to take our final break, hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor the AD Toolbox segment. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. So, let's take that final break. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Brian Rosefield is going to put into his new athletic director toolbox. Please stay with us. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment. Athletic Surveys are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire program. Typically, athletic directors only hear from the 2% of parents or student athletes that are disgruntled, and we need to hear from them. But we also need to hear from the 98% of our student athletes and parents that really love our program. It's a tremendously valuable tool when you're visiting with that disgruntled constituent or with your principal or the school board to let them see that, hey, our families, our student athletes really do love our programs. We use surveys for just about everything at my schools, and you should too. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your student athletes or your parents, you're really missing out. Talk to the pros at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting with Brian Rosefield, a certified athletic administrator from Columbia, South Carolina. He's the athletic director at Ridgeview High School. Brian, obviously, you know your way around the world of athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director. What 3 tools are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Yeah, I love this topic, Jake. I think it's so neat. And you're right, 3 is certainly not enough. And I'm going to give you 1 maybe that you can hold in your hands, and 2 that may be a little bit more esoteric if you listen to me talk for about an hour. But the first thing that I would encourage any new AD to do is kind of what I've done with this ridgeviewcoaches.com website, is systematize the job as much as possible. Get things rolling to where if there's a question about a bus time, you don't have to stop what you're doing, go log into the bus system and call the coach back, because everything, especially in those first couple of years, will take 3 times the amount of time, maybe 4 times the amount of time that you think. It's like any home improvement project that I've ever said, like, I can probably do that in a day. Well, 3 weeks later, I'm still dealing with it, right? And so being able to have that information in one place, I think is huge, to be able to systematize that, and taking the time on the front end. The bus time thing is a good example. Like, that takes some time. But when I enter a bus in, now I've learned I'm going to put it over here on this spreadsheet that is now tied into ridgeviewcoaches.com. So I do that on the front end to make it a little bit easier on me and my coaches on the back end. The other 2 things are a little more esoteric. The first one is really know what you believe, what I believe. Figure out, take the time, pull out a piece of paper, go meditate, go on some sort of a trip, go on a trail, figure out, what do I believe about high school sports? In this case, for me, for high school sports. For me, I believe in the power of high school sports to change the kids' lives. For around here, it gives our kids something positive to do. I want as many kids involved in a program, whether they're playing, whether they're a manager, whether they're filming. I just want them involved in something. I have very clear beliefs about high school sports. And so really, I've taken that time over the years to figure out what I believe. And then I've gone and, with the help of our staff here at Ridgeview, come up with a mission statement, a vision statement, core values. I have expectations for coaches that I can share with coaches as well if they reach out, all that. But those things were born out of me taking the time, our coaches taking the time to figure out what we believed in. And so I think that is so key, because once the waves of parents, and once the waves of everything starts happening, can I still be standing firm on like, no, this is what I believe. This is what I want this to look like. I may disagree with you, may disagree with how we're doing things, but no. So for us at Ridgeview, we focus on our hashtag is next level that we use on all of our social media, and that's our mission statement. And it means so many different things, but we came up with that because we want our kids to grow to their next level of whatever that is in life. And the silly example that I use is if you have a student athlete that's not going to class, well, hey, we want to help them grow. We're going to get them to class. Okay, now that they're going to class, we're going to make sure they're bringing their Chromebook. All right, great. They're bringing their Chromebook. Now they're doing their homework. Now they're sitting in the front of the class. So every day, just trying to get a little bit better and to grow to whatever their next level in life is. Now, we also have different meanings on that. Hey, we want our kids to go play sports at the next level, and we're also going to do things at a little bit different level than maybe you're just your average high school around the nation. We're going to do things on social media that maybe a lot of people don't do. So that really informs a lot of our decision making when it comes to kids, when it comes to coaches who we're hiring. If I hire a coach, it's one of my favorite questions, Jake, that I ask in interviews. How would you define success? I guess maybe I'm giving away the secret now, but I'm still going to ask it anyway. How would you define success if you were to get this job at Ridgeview High School? And there's no right or wrong answer there, but I want to hear them talk about that. If somebody just comes in and says flat out, say, hey, it's just winning championships. Okay, not a bad answer. Okay, but I want to hear more about the growth of kids, the development of kids, the development of coaches, the community getting involved. And that's what I want to hear, because that's what we're doing. And so we've been able to hire out of that belief system, out of that mission statement there. And so again, the vision and the expectations of coaches I can go into offline with people that want to reach out. And then the final thing is just really surrounding yourself with great people. That's something I learned as a cross country coach. Oh my goodness. I've never been a runner. I had to learn everything on the fly. And so Bob Crowley, Tyler Gordon, Ryan Orland, everybody, Marquise Ben, everybody that I was finding around me to say, you know about running, you're good with kids, come on over here, let's go. I need you. And so just really, I've been able to do that here as an AD too, being nice to people, speaking to people in the hallway, building relationships with community members, parents, not being afraid to, and I still get this way sometimes, like, I don't know if I want to, no, like I'm the AD, I'm going to get out there and speak to people. And so just really surrounding all of our kids, all of our community with just unbelievable people. Been huge. So again, systematizing, knowing what I believe, and then putting that into practice with a mission and vision statement and expectations, and then surrounding myself with great people and just being kind to people. It doesn't take a whole lot to be nice to people, Jake.
No, you're absolutely right. And again, I love all your toolbox tools and the great people. And I've used that line many times and use that line, but it's true. As a head coach, you get the opportunity to, get those Coach of the Year honors. But I've always said I was smart enough to surround myself with great assistant coaches. I had great bosses. I had great kids, and that allowed me to maybe get a couple of honors. But you're absolutely right. Having great people around you, is best for your program. Very cool stuff. Brian, again, this has been really cool. Can't figure out why we didn't connect earlier, but I'm glad we did. Let's do it one final time. If one of our listeners wants to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'd say LinkedIn would be a good place to start. Brian Rosefield on LinkedIn, and then shoot me an email, brosefield@richland2.org. And that number 2 is numerical. So happy to help, happy to connect, happy to share ideas. I'll be down at the South Carolina conference coming up in March for our SC AAA conference. So happy to get together with folks down there. And I'm happy to host people here at Ridgeview. I'm happy to something we didn't talk about, my love of travel. I'll hop on an airplane and go see some people too. So just happy to connect and share some ideas and share with folks.
Well, we appreciate you spending time with us today, and all the best moving forward, and with your state conference, coming up in March. Maybe we can get you down to Florida for our state conference in May.
That sounds great, Jake. Thanks for having me. Love what you're doing. Really appreciate you having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for being a guest. It was great fun. For our listeners, we do this just about every day, and we upload the Zoom videos to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. Please check out our sponsors and come back next time for another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Well, that was a lot of fun. We appreciate you listening. As we say, we do this just about every day with new content. If you'd like to be a guest on the Educational AD Podcast, shoot me an email at jakestouchdown@gmail.com. Check out our sponsors. There's only 8 of them, and they're all great sponsors that I've used. And don't forget our partners, We Coach, the Florida Coaches Coalition, and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.